The bell above the cafe door jingled as I stepped inside. But the sound barely registered over the roar in my chest. Morning light poured through the tall windows of the Capitol Hill spot we claimed as ours years ago, turning the steam from fresh espresso into golden haze. Evelyn sat at our usual corner table, blonde hair loose and catching the sun, her camera bag resting against the chair leg like an old friend. She was staring into her coffee, shoulders tense, the same way she did every time life tried to pull her somewhere new. This time, the somewhere new was New York. Tomorrow. I didn't hesitate like I had 100 times before. I crossed the room. The scent of rain-soaked pavement still clinging to my jacket mixing with the sharp bite of dark roast. My sneakers squeaked softly on the worn wooden floor. 10 years of best friendship. Late-night talks. Inside jokes. And the ache I buried so deep I almost convinced myself it wasn't there. Today, that ache demanded air. "Evelyn," I said. Voice low but steady. She looked up. Those hazel eyes, warm, curious, a little red-rimmed, locked on mine. "Audrey. You're early. Everything okay?" I slid into the chair across from her. The wooden seat was cool beneath me. My hands shook as I set them on the table, inches from hers. The cafe hummed around us, the hiss of the milk steamer. Quiet chatter from the morning crowd. A distant siren wailing down the hill. None of it mattered. "No," I answered. "Nothing's been okay for a long time." "Not really." She tilted her head. That small furrow appearing between her brows, the one I knew by heart from every heartbreak she'd confided in me. "Talk to me." I took a breath that tasted like fear and possibility. The words I'd swallowed for a decade finally broke free. "I'm in love with you, Ev. Have been since that first semester at UW when you dragged me to the photography exhibit and explained light like it was poetry. Every time you came back from a shoot in Lisbon or Patagonia and crashed on my couch, telling me about the women who never stayed. I wanted to say it. But I was terrified. Terrified of losing the only person who really sees me. So I never took that step. I stayed in the friend zone I built myself. Silence stretched between us, thick as the fog that sometimes rolled in off Elliott Bay. Evelyn's fingers tightened around her mug. I could hear her breathing change, shallower, quicker. The scent of her vanilla and cedar perfume hit me harder than usual. "You." She exhaled a shaky laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "God. Audrey. All this time?" "Yeah. All this time." My voice cracked on the last word. "And now you're leaving tomorrow? And I can't let another sunrise pass without facing you honestly. I love you. Not as a friend. As the woman I want to wake up next to. Argue over playlists with. Build something real with." Tears welled in her eyes, catching the morning light like tiny prisms. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her palm was warm, calloused from years of gripping cameras in every kind of weather. The touch sent a current straight through me. Electric and familiar all at once. "I thought it was one-sided," she whispered. Her thumb traced slow circles on the back of my hand, a gesture so tender it hurt. "After college, when I started dating women, you never said anything. You cheered me on. You held me when they left. I convinced myself you were straight. Or that I was imagining the way you'd look at me sometimes, like I was the only person in the room. It killed me. AUD. But I couldn't risk our friendship either." The confession landed between us like a shared secret finally spoken aloud. I felt the years of quiet longing crack open. "I was so scared," I admitted, voice barely above the cafe noise. "Scared you'd see me differently. Scared I'd break what we had." Evelyn leaned closer. The space between us shrank until I could see the faint freckles across her nose. The way her lashes caught the light. "You beautiful idiot. I've been half in love with you since you stayed up all night editing my first portfolio and told me my photos made people feel less alone. I didn't think you'd ever want this." A tear slipped down her cheek. I reached out without thinking and brushed it away with my thumb. Her skin was soft, warm from the sunlight streaming in. Around us, the world kept moving, baristas calling orders, customers laughing, but it felt like we existed in our own quiet film scene. The kind where the score swells and everything else fades. "I do want this," I said. "More than anything." She stood suddenly, pulling me up with her. In the middle of the cafe, with strangers glancing over curiously, Evelyn cupped my face in both hands. Her touch was gentle but sure. "Then don't let me go to New York alone." Our lips met in a kiss that had been waiting a decade. It started soft, almost hesitant, her mouth warm and tasting faintly of coffee and salt from her tears. Then it deepened. Years of unspoken want pouring out in the press of lips. The slight tremble in her fingers against my jaw. I wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her closer, feeling the solid reality of her body against mine. The scent of her hair, the small sound she made in the back of her throat, it was everything. When we finally broke apart, foreheads resting together, she laughed softly through fresh tears. Well, damn. That was worth the wait. We left the cafe hand in hand, stepping into the bright Seattle morning. The air smelled clean after last night's rain. Crisp pine from the nearby park mixing with distant ocean breeze. We walked Volunteer Park. Grass still damp under our shoes. Cherry blossoms drifting down like pale pink snow. For hours we talked, really talked. About the nights I'd cried after she left on long assignments. About how she'd saved every postcard I sent during my rare solo trips. About the fear that had kept us silent and the courage it took to break it. I was going to New York to run, she admitted as we sat on a bench overlooking the city skyline. Another escape after my last breakup. But this. Us. It feels like coming home. I squeezed her hand. Stay. Or if you go, take me with you. No more one steps. We moved together now. By late afternoon, back in my apartment with its shelves of books and her scattered prints on the walls, we made love for the first time. It was slow, exploratory, full of whispered names and gentle discoveries. Every touch carried the weight of years finally honored. Her hands mapping my skin felt like forgiveness and promise all at once. The afternoon light shifted across the room, painting us in soft gold as we held each other afterward, breathing in sync. That evening, Evelyn canceled her flight. We stood on the small balcony watching the sun dip behind the mountains, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deepening purples. Her arms wrapped around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. The one step you never took, she murmured against my ear, finally moved us both forward. I turned in her arms, meeting her gaze. And it led me right where I belong. No grand gestures. No perfect ending. Just two women who had finally chosen honesty over fear. In the quiet of that Seattle night, with the city lights beginning to flicker on below, we started writing our own story, one built on truth, courage, and the kind of love that grows deeper the longer you wait for it. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel terrifying. It felt like ours.